After studying this module, you shall be able to know about waterborne diseases, learn about point sources and non-point sources of water pollution, understand what is groundwater pollution, know about drinking water hazards or infections which are caused by contaminated water. So now let us begin with the introduction of this topic, waterborne diseases. So what are waterborne diseases? Waterborne diseases are mainly caused by pathogens and microorganisms that are most commonly transmitted through contaminated water. When humans are exposed to this contaminated water during bathing, washing, drinking, or in the preparation of food, or in the consumption of food they get, affected by many infections and hazardous diseases which are termed as waterborne diseases. Amongst all waterborne diseases, diarrhea is most common amongst children in the developing countries. As estimated by the World Health Organization, waterborne diseases are considered to be 4.1% of the DALY, that is total DALY. DALY is basically the disability adjusted life year, global burden of diseases causing 1.8 million human deaths annually. Out of the 88% of the burden is due to unsafe water supply. The term waterborne disease is mainly used for infections caused by consumption of infected water. Water gets infected by microbes or parasites as they enter accidentally inside the water and they transmit such infections. Viruses are also responsible for waterborne diseases. The important classes of waterborne diseases are caused by metazoan parasites, which includes nematoda, also known as roundworms. An important waterborne nematodal disease is dracunculiasis. This disease is caused by swallowing water and results in the production of cephalopoda that act as a vector for the nematoda. Another class of waterborne metazoan pathogens are some members of the Schistosomatidae family, which belong to the family of blood flukes. They infect victims if their skin is in contact with the infected water. Blood flukes are pathogens that cause schistosomiasis of various forms that are more or less dangerous. Waterborne diseases significantly affect the economy, locally as well as internationally. Infected people in less developed countries are usually confronted with related costs and with a huge financial burden. The medical treatment cost, cost of transportation, good food results in financial losses. Many families even sell their lands in order to get good treatment in good hospitals. Now, after having studied the basics of waterborne pollution and their causes and the various viruses, etc., now we'll begin with the water pollution as a topic. Water pollution is basically the change in quality of water bodies such as lakes, rivers, oceans, aquifers and groundwater. The contamination in water results in degradation in water quality. When pollutants directly or indirectly enter into the water bodies, they decrease the level of dissolved oxygen and increase harmful contents in water, resulting change in physical and chemical characteristics of water inside the water bodies. This is very dangerous to the entire biosphere, that is plants and organisms living in the water bodies, all of them. In all these cases, the entire biological community gets affected. As we all know, water is a necessity of life, or I should say, water is the elixir of life. Water pollution is a major global concern and thus requires ongoing evaluation and revision of water resource policy at all levels. Water pollution is the leading worldwide cause of deaths and diseases. That is approximately 14,000 deaths per day. So that is a huge number. In India, the number is 580 deaths per day. It is estimated that 90% of the water in China is polluted. Not only in China, but the water pollution is a concern in almost all the countries of the world. In the recent report on quality of water in the United States, 47% of the assessed lake acres, 45% of assessed stream miles, and 32% of assessed bays were classified as polluted. Water is said to be polluted when it contains anthropogenic contaminants, not good for human consumption. Naturally, water gets polluted by volcanoes, algae blooms, storms and earthquakes. Surface water and groundwater is interrelated. Groundwater is nothing but the surface water which seeps through the soil into the ground. Therefore, contamination in the surface water can also reach to the groundwater. Surface water is being polluted by two sources of pollution. They are different due to difference in their origin. They are point sources and non-point sources. Now, let us study point sources and non-point sources in detail now. Let us discuss now about the point source. In this type of water pollution, contaminants enter in water via a single recognizable source such as a pipe or a ditch. Other point sources are from sewage treatment plants, a factory or a city storm drain. The United States Clean Water Act, that is CWA, describes point source for monitoring enforcement purposes. Next comes the non-point sources. Non-point sources are also denoted as NPS, refers to the contamination that does not originate from a single discrete source. NPS pollution is basically due to small amounts of contaminants gathered from a large area. For example, leaching out of nitrogen compounds from fertilized agricultural lands. NPS pollution is also caused by nutrient runoff in storm water from sheet flow over an agricultural field. The contaminated storm water washed off of parking lots, roads and highways is termed as urban runoff and can also be counted under the NPS pollution source or the category. However, because this runoff is typically passed into storm drain systems and expelled through pipes to local surface waters, it comes under the category of point source. Having studied all that, let us now come to groundwater pollution. There are complex interactions between groundwater and surface water. Due to this, groundwater aquifers are polluted indirectly, affecting surface water bodies. A spill or ongoing release of chemicals into the soil may not create point or non-point source pollution, but can pollute the aquifer, resulting in toxic plume. The characteristic of soil, site geology, hydrogeology and hydrology and the nature of contaminants has importance in the analysis of contaminated groundwater. A contaminant specifically causing water pollution has a wide range of chemicals and pathogens. Also, physical changes of water such as change in temperature and discoloration alters its quality. The concentration is an important factor that determines what a natural component of water is and what is a contaminant, because each and every substance has its own allowed concentration. If they exceed the limit, they can have negative impacts on aquatic flora and fauna too. Natural material as well as man-made chemicals can result in lowering the oxygen level of water. Some of the natural and anthropogenic substances may cause turbidity, that is cloudiness, which results in blocking of light, thereby reducing the photosynthesis process and disrupting the plant growth. This can also result in clogging in the gills of some fish species. Almost all the chemical substances are toxic in nature. Pathogens are responsible for production of waterborne diseases in either human or animal hosts. This results change in physical nature of water, such as the acidity of water, as it changes the pH of water, electrical conductivity and the temperature of water too. This can cause eutrophication. Now, what is eutrophication? It is basically an increase in the concentration of chemical nutrients in an ecosystem to an extent that increases in the primary productivity of the ecosystem. As the degree of eutrophication increases, it affects the environment, causing anoxia, that is ozone depletion, reduction in water quality and damage to aquatic life. Now, after having discussed the groundwater pollution, let us take up drinking water hazards. Sewage effluents, surface runoff or industrial pollutants pollute large number of water bodies such as lakes, rivers and ponds. Animal waste and pathogens can also contaminate water bodies, but in small amounts. The presence of dead animals upstream is very common. In large amounts, contamination is done by bacteria, protozoa or parasitic worms from human and animal waste or pathogens themselves. They use other organisms as an intermediate host. Pathogenic strains of E. coli bacteria survive briefly outside the body in order to infect newer hosts. Human activities are somehow responsible for groundwater pollution too. Pathogens such as Giardia lamblia and Cryptosporidium cause diarrhea. Wherever the population of these pathogens is high, better treatments are always required. In the developed countries, they are present in lesser amounts. Common among them is Vibrio cholera, and which causes cholera, or you can say the name could be pronounced as Vibrio cholerae. This causes cholera, and various strains of Salmonella, which causes typhoid and paratyphoid diseases. Pathogenic viruses may also be found in water. The larvae of flukes are particularly dangerous in area where sheep, deer or cattle are used to visiting. If these microscopic larvae are ingested, life-threatening cysts in the brain or liver are formed. This also contaminates plants that are grown in or near the contaminated water. Now let us study some classes of pathogens. Disease-causing microorganisms are referred to as pathogens. Although many bacteria are either harmless or beneficial, but few of them are disease-causing. Coliform bacteria is an indicator of water being polluted by bacterial infection. Some of the microorganisms are present in surface water and can affect the human health, and they include these following bacteria that you can see here in the table. Pathogens may result from on-site sanitation systems or inadequately treated sewage discharges in large amounts. Since the infrastructure sewage system in older cities is old, therefore they may have leaky sewage collection systems such as pipes, pumps, valves, which can cause overflow of the sanitary sewage. Next, we shall come to the discussion of infections caused by contaminated water. Some of the infections known to be caused by the contaminated water are protozoa infections, parasitic infections, bacterial infections, viral infections, algal infections, etc. Let us discuss these diseases caused by them and general symptoms of each of them in detail now. First one, as I stated, was protozoan infections. Protozoan infections are parasitic disease-causing organisms which come under the category of protozoa such as amoebozoa, excavata and chroma violeta organisms. All protozoa are not related to each other very closely. They only have few similarities such as eukaryotic, unicellular and motility, though with exceptions. The term protozoa are usually discouraged in the modern biosciences. However, this terminology is still utilized in medicine. Since the classification of medicine is conservative, therefore this terminology is partial also due to identifications of organisms based upon appearances and not upon their DNA structure. Animals can also be affected by organisms of subclass Coccidia, causing the disease coccidiosis, and species and in genus is Besnoita and causing the disease Besnoitiosis. Infections by protozoan are called or summarized in the table as shown here. As you can see this table is shown here and it tells you about the various infections which are caused by the protozoans. Now we shall move on to the parasite infections. This is an infectious disease transmitted by parasites, but there are many parasites which are not disease causing. All living organisms, that is plants and animals, are affected by parasites. The study of parasitic diseases is called parasitology. It is estimated that approximately 1 crore 40 lakh deaths are caused by parasites infection each year. Some parasites like Toxoplasma gondii and Plasmodium are direct disease causing organisms, but other organisms can cause disease by the toxins that they produce. Here you can see there is a table which describes basically the diseases which are caused by the parasite infections. Now we shall discuss each of them. First one is the immersion or the schistosomiasis, and it is caused by the members of the genus Schistosomata. The sources are freshwater contaminated with certain types of snails that carry schistosomes. The general symptoms are blood in the urine, depending on the type of infection which is caused, rash or itchy skin, fever, chills, cough and muscle aches. Second one is dracunculiasis. It is also known as the guinea worm disease. It is also caused by the Dracunculus medinensis. The cause or the source is stagnant water containing larvae which is generally in the parasitid Superpodia. The symptoms are allergic reaction, urticaria rash, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, asthmatic attack. The next disease is teniasis. The source is generally the drinking water contaminated with eggs, and the symptom is intestinal disturbances, neurological manifestations, loss of weight and cysticercosis. Fourth one is the Facilopiasis. Symptoms may mimic anemia or a hormone deficiency. Some common symptoms are itching, affecting the anus or the vaginal area, abdominal pain, weight loss, increased appetite, bowel obstructions, diarrhea and vomiting resulting in dehydration, sleeping problems, worms in the vomit or stools, aching muscles or joints, general melisy, allergies, fatigue and nervousness. Symptoms may also be confused with pneumonia or food poisoning. Parasite infection can cause a mild discomfort or even death. The nematode parasites result in anemia and protein malnutrition in humans. Approximately 740 million people are affected by this, including children and adults. In children, this chronic hookworm leads to impaired physical and intellectual development. Pregnant women affected by a hookworm infection can also develop anemia, which is dangerous for both mother and the infant by causing low birth weight, impaired milk production, increased risk of death and of the mother as well as the baby. Causes of parasite infection. Contamination in food or water causes parasite exposure to mammals. Also, consumption of contaminated water can result in Giardia infections. They normally enter the body through the skin or mouth. Close contact with pets can lead to parasite infections also, because pets like dogs and cats are host to many parasites. Other risks associated with parasites infections are walking bare feet, inadequate disposal of feces, lack of hygiene, close contact with infected person, and eating undercooked or exotic foods. Let us now move on from the parasitic infection to the bacterial infections. These diseases are caused by bacteria. For example, the table below depicts some bacterial infections and their symptoms. And you can see this table here clearly depicting the infections and the diseases, the agents which are causing the disease, the sources as well as the symptoms of the disease caused. Viral infections. A viral infection results due to exposure to pathogenic viruses and infectious virus particles called virions. Viral diseases can be detected clinically by studying the history of severe muscle and joint pains before fever and detect skin rash and lymph gland swelling. Some viral diseases and their symptoms are listed in the table that you can see here. Now let us move on to the algal infections. In algal infections, protozoa is the disease found mainly in dogs, cats and humans. This is caused by a green alga known as Protozoa that lacks chlorophyll. The two most common species are Protozoa wickerhamii and Protozoa zopfi. These type of algal infections are mainly found in dogs. The first human case was identified in 1964 in Sierra Leone. The common disease caused by algal infections is Desmodesmus infection due to the microbial agent Desmodesmus aromatus, which naturally occurs in the water and can enter open in wounds, which are in the body. Its symptoms are similar to fungal infections. Now, after having described all the diseases, sources and the contaminants, let us now put our focus to the prevention and control. In order to prevent the waterborne diseases, portable water purification devices must be used. They are also known as point of use or POUs water treatments. They are self-contained units and they can be used by persons who consume drinking water from untreated sources such as rivers, lakes, groundwater, etc. The device does not purify water to its pure state, that is water, but it makes unchlorinated water to make it safe for drinking purposes. Recent techniques of water purification include use of UV light and reverse osmosis process in the devices which are commercially available. But one should be regular in their maintenance so that purity of the water is completely ensured. After having studied the waterborne diseases in detail and its various aspects, let us now summarize this module. In this module, we have taught you that waterborne diseases are mainly caused by pathogens, microorganisms that are most commonly transmitted in contaminated water. Viruses are also responsible for waterborne diseases. The important classes of waterborne diseases are caused by metazoan parasites, which includes nematoda, also known as roundworms. An important waterborne nematodal disease is dracunculiasis. The disease is caused by swallowing water, resulting production of cephalopoda that acts as a vector for the nematoda. Water pollution is basically the change in quality of water bodies such as lakes, rivers, oceans, aquifers and groundwater. Water pollution is a major global concern, therefore requires ongoing evaluation and revision of water resource policy at all levels. Water is said to be polluted when it contains anthropogenic contaminants and either is not good for human consumption or undergoes a marked shift in its ability to support its constituent biotic communities such as fish and other aquatic life. Sewage effluent runoffs or industrial pollutants pollute large number of water bodies such as lakes and rivers. So I hope that you got a good information on the waterborne diseases through this module, students.